You ever meet someone who thinks they own the entire neighborhood just because they're part of an HOA? Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me, and trust me, it gets wild. I'd been looking for a quiet spot away from the chaos of city life. After months of searching, I found this perfect little piece of land, tucked just outside a fancy gated community. It came with a sparkling blue private lake, surrounded by tall pine trees and chirping birds. The best part, the property was completely outside of their HOA's control. It was peaceful, private, and legally mine to do whatever I wanted with. When I bought it, I imagined lazy mornings fishing off the shore and quiet evenings watching the sunset over the water. But that dream didn't last long. The moment word spread that I was the new lake owner, the HOA folks started losing their minds, especially their president, Karen. On my very first weekend there, she stormed over in her golf cart like she was running a military base. She didn't even introduce herself. She just yelled, "Excuse me, you can't just park your truck here. This is HOA property." I couldn't help but laugh. I told her calmly, "Actually, ma'am, this is my property now. I bought this entire lakefront." Her face turned red, like she couldn't process the idea of someone owning something she couldn't control. She mumbled something about community rules, and drove off in a huff. Right then, I knew peace and quiet were no longer on the menu. What I didn't know yet was just how far she'd go to try and claim something that was never hers to begin with. After that first encounter, I honestly thought Karen would just grumble to her friends and move on. But oh no, she was just getting started. Within a few days, I noticed something strange. Right near my fence line, brand new, private property, HOA members only, signs started popping up. They looked official, same colors and fonts the HOA used for everything in the neighborhood. The funny part, they were on my land. Then, a week later, I got a letter in the mail from the HOA. It said I owed $1,200 annually for lake maintenance fees. I nearly spit out my coffee laughing. They actually thought they could charge me to maintain a lake that I legally owned. At first, I tried to handle it politely. I wrote back with a copy of my property deed, highlighted the boundaries, and added a note. This land and the lake are not under your HOA jurisdiction. Simple, right, wrong. Next weekend, I found people from the HOA walking right through my backyard like it was a public park. Families setting up picnic blankets, kids splashing in the water, coolers everywhere. They even left trash behind. That's when I realized this wasn't just ignorance, it was entitlement on steroids. I called the sheriff. When he arrived, I showed him the deed and the fake HOA signs. He nodded and said, "Yeah, they have no authority here. You're free to remove the signs and keep anyone out." That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't just protecting property anymore. I was about to teach the HOA a lesson they'd never forget. After dealing with all that HOA nonsense, I decided it was time to turn frustration into creativity, or, let's be honest, sweet revenge. If they were going to act like they owned my lake, then I was going to make sure they paid to touch a single drop of it. So, I came up with an idea that would make their heads spin. I'd build my very own dock and recreation area, right in front of their view. For the next few weekends, I got to work. I rented tools, hauled lumber, and started building a beautiful wooden dock that stretched out into the calm blue water. I added benches, a ladder for swimmers, and even a little platform for fishing. My buddies came over to help, and we had a blast building it, laughing, grilling, and blasting music while the HOA members glared from across the fence like angry hawks. And of course, Karen couldn't resist coming over again. She marched up, arms crossed, sunglasses on, and barked, "You can't just build that. It'll ruin the neighborhood's aesthetic." I smiled and said, "Actually, Karen, it's improving my property's value. And don't worry, you can still use it, for $100 a day." She looked like she was about to explode. That night, I painted a big wooden sign. "Welcome to Blue Creek Dock. Entry $100. Private property. No HOA access without payment." I even registered a small business license to make it official. It wasn't just a dock anymore. It was a statement, a symbol that they couldn't control everything. And the next weekend, when the first paying visitors arrived, Karen completely lost it. The moment the first visitors arrived and started enjoying my dock, you could practically hear the HOA neighborhood explode with gossip. Families were laughing, people were fishing, music was playing, and Karen, she was fuming. A few days later, she came marching down my driveway again, but this time she didn't come alone. She brought 2 HOA board members, both armed with clipboards, cameras, and that fake authority energy. They stood there like they were inspecting a crime scene. Karen yelled, "You're illegally profiting from HOA property. We're taking you to court." I couldn't help but grin. I pulled out my property deed again and said, "Actually, you're standing on my land right now. And since you didn't pay the $100 access fee, you're trespassing." The sheriff happened to be nearby that day and rolled up just in time. After I explained the situation, he turned to Karen and said, "Ma'am, this man owns this property. You have no right to be here without his permission." The look on her face was priceless, pure rage mixed with humiliation. She stuttered something about community rights, before storming off, her board members shuffling behind her like scolded kids. But she wasn't done yet. Oh no, Karen tried a different kind of attack, rumor warfare. She started spreading lies around the neighborhood, saying my lake water was full of toxic algae, snake infestations, and unsafe bacteria. Funny enough, those lies only made people more curious. The next weekend, I had even more visitors, all wanting to see this dangerous lake for themselves. Karen had officially lost control, and I was starting to realize something beautiful. Every tantrum she threw only made me more popular. As the weeks passed, my little lake business turned into the neighborhood's favorite hangout spot. What started as a simple idea for revenge had become something much bigger. Families came from nearby towns to fish, kayak, and spend their weekends at Blue Creek Dock. Kids laughed, grills smoked, and the air was filled with the sounds of summer, the kind of peace I'd been looking for all along. Meanwhile, the HOA finally realized they couldn't win. Every complaint they filed got thrown out because they had zero authority over my property. Their legal threats turned into nothing but paper wasted on bad grammar and frustration. Karen stopped sending letters after the sheriff visited her twice for harassing me. And the best part, some of the HOA residents, the normal ones, started showing up too. They didn't care about the drama, they just wanted to enjoy the lake. They paid their $100 like everyone else and even thanked me for keeping the place clean and fun. Then came the ultimate twist. One sunny morning, Karen's husband showed up at my dock. He looked embarrassed but smiled and said quietly, "Don't tell Karen, but this lake's the best thing to happen around here." He paid in cash, grabbed a fishing pole, and sat there for hours, completely relaxed. That's when I knew I'd truly won. Now, every evening when I sit at the end of my dock, watching the sunset reflect off the calm water, I can't help but laugh. Karen still drives by sometimes, glaring out her car window, powerless and furious. Because in the end, the sweetest revenge isn't shouting or fighting, It's living your best life on something they can't control.